Miyamoto Musashi. The swordsman who killed his first opponent at 13, he fought his first duel to the death at 13 years old, using a wooden staff against a trained adult swordsman, and beat him so badly the man died from his injuries. Over the next 3 decades, he fought more than 60 documented duels. He lost none of them. Then, at the height of his fame, he walked away from swordsmanship entirely and spent his final years writing a book about strategy that people still study 4 centuries later. Miyamoto Musashi was born in Japan in the mid-1580s during a turbulent period of near-constant civil conflict between competing feudal warlords, a genuinely violent era that provided young, ambitious swordsmen with frequent real opportunities to test their skills in actual combat, rather than purely ceremonial or training contexts. According to Musashi's own later writings, his first duel occurred at age 13 against an established swordsman named Arima Kihei, a challenge Musashi reportedly accepted and won using a wooden staff rather than a bladed weapon, striking his opponent with enough force to cause fatal injuries, an outcome that, whatever its exact specific details, established a reputation for genuine, exceptional combat skill that would follow Musashi throughout the rest of his life. Over the following decades, Musashi developed a reputation as one of the most formidable duelists in Japan, engaging in a documented series of more than 60 individual combat encounters, according to his own later account and corroborating historical records from the period without suffering a single confirmed defeat. An extraordinary record even accounting for the genuine likelihood that some specific details of individual duels may have been embellished or incompletely documented across the considerable historical distance separating Musashi's actual life from the surviving written accounts describing it. Musashi's most famous individual duel, and the one that has become most thoroughly embedded in Japanese cultural memory, occurred in 1612 against Sasaki Kojiro, a rival swordsman renowned for his own exceptional skill and his signature technique involving an unusually long sword. According to the most widely repeated historical account, Musashi deliberately arrived hours late to the agreed duel, a decision some historical interpretations suggest was a calculated psychological tactic specifically intended to unsettle his opponent's composure and patience before the actual combat began. Musashi reportedly fought using a wooden sword he had carved himself from a boat oar during his delayed journey to the dueling ground, defeating Kojiro in a single, decisive exchange, an encounter that cemented Musashi's reputation as Japan's preeminent swordsman of his era. What genuinely distinguishes Musashi from many other celebrated historical warriors, beyond his remarkable individual combat record, is the specific intellectual and philosophical dimension he brought to his approach to swordsmanship and strategy more broadly. Musashi developed and taught a distinctive two-sword fighting technique, employing both a long and short sword simultaneously, an approach unconventional enough within traditional Japanese swordsmanship that it required Musashi to develop entirely new training methods and philosophical justifications to support its practical, effective use in actual combat. In the final years of his life, Musashi withdrew to a cave to compose what would become his most enduring legacy, a text known as the Book of Five Rings, a comprehensive treatise on swordsmanship, strategy, and philosophy that extended considerably beyond purely technical combat instruction, incorporating broader principles regarding timing, psychology, adaptability, and strategic thinking that Musashi explicitly framed as applicable to contexts well beyond individual swordsmanship itself. Principles he believed held genuine, practical value for military command, business strategy, and broader decision-making under pressure and uncertainty. The text, completed shortly before Musashi's death in 1645, remained relatively obscure outside specialized martial arts circles in Japan for centuries following its composition, until a considerably wider audience, particularly in the West, discovered and embraced the work during the latter half of the 20th century, when translations of The Book of Five Rings gained significant popularity among Western business executives, military strategists, and general readers, specifically interested in applying its broader strategic principles to contexts entirely removed from Musashi's own original context of individual sword combat, a genuinely unusual afterlife for a martial arts treatise written by a 17th century Japanese swordsman. Modern historians studying Musashi's life face the genuine, persistent challenge of separating documented historical fact from the substantial body of legend and embellishment that accumulated around his reputation in the centuries following his death. Since much of what's popularly known about Musashi's specific individual duels derives primarily from his own later writings and subsequent historical and literary accounts written by others after his death, sources that, while generally treated as reasonably reliable by historians studying the period, inevitably include some degree of the kind of dramatic embellishment common to accounts of celebrated historical figures more broadly, particularly one whose reputation had already achieved considerable cultural significance well before later biographical accounts were formally compiled. What makes Musashi's story endure as one of history's most significant examples of a warrior's legacy, extending genuinely, meaningfully beyond individual combat achievement, isn't simply his remarkable, largely undefeated dueling record. Impressive as that record genuinely remains, even accounting for likely historical embellishment, but the specific way his final intellectual work transformed a lifetime of individual combat experience into a broader philosophical framework that continues to find genuine, practical relevance among readers operating in entirely different contexts. Nearly 4 centuries after a swordsman who spent his life perfecting the art of killing chose to spend his final years writing about the deeper principles of strategy and adaptability underlying that lifetime of combat. If stories like this, where history's most feared warriors left behind legacies that outgrew the very battles that made them famous, are exactly what you come here for, subscribe to The Grave Details, because history holds more stories like this than most people will ever know.